What gets in the way of your greatness? Drum roll, please. You are probably your own worst enemy when it comes to you accepting that you're great. And this is true for 99.9% of us. And there's three things that generally we do to sabotage ourselves. The first one is our thinking. Did you know that on average you think 60 to 80,000 thoughts in a 24-hour period? Now that's a lot of thinking. So what do you think about most of the time? Each and every one of us has a unique relationship with time. And when I say unique, I mean we're attached to either the past, the present, or the future. So granted, we all think about the past, we're all in the moment, the present moment, and we all think about the future. But generally speaking, you'll find that each and every one of us has a preference. So some of us love to sit in the past. We sit in our past mistakes, what we could have said, what we should have said. We think about our past glory, how it was amazing back in the days, but now it's just so horrible. How we were once a senior executive, but now our lives are miserable. How we had the perfect friendships, the perfect whatever, and now life is just so hard. So that's the kind of person that obsesses a lot about the past. Then there's the present moment kind of person. Now this person doesn't really think as much as somebody in the past because they're in the moment, they're enjoying life, they're embracing the environment that they find themselves and the people that they're engaging with. They give all of themselves to whatever's happening in that particular moment. And then there's those of us that spend time in the future. So we fantasize, we daydream. One day when this happens, I'm going to be happy. In the future, when I get that big tender, I am going to have the perfect life. When I find my true love, then my life will be okay. Or we think of it negatively. We think, in 5 years' time, what if I don't have a job? My life will be over. What if my husband leaves me? Then my life will be dreadful. What if so-and-so doesn't want to be my friend anymore? Then my life will just become so awful. And on we think about things that we have very limited control over, if you think about it, right? So which one are you? Are you a past, present, or future kind of person? Ideally, you want to spend most of your time thinking about the present moment, dip into the past when it's useful for reflection, and dip into the future in terms of planning and visualizing the kind of future that you want to have. Because life primarily happens in the present moment, right? We only ever have this moment right here, right now. Nothing more, nothing less. And if you spend your life on the other sides, meaning the past and the future, guess what? Life will be happening here and you'll completely miss it. You'll get to the end of your days thinking, if only I had done this, if only I had done that, because there'll be no more time left. So once you've identified which part of time you like to spend your time in, reflect on the patterns of thinking. What are the things that you think about, and are they serving you? And if they're not serving you, how can you change them so that you bring them to the present moment, so that you rationalize, you become practical about your situation right here, right now, and then decide what steps you need to take to get to the life that you desire. Now, in that process, I'm not at all suggesting that you must now become obsessed with the future, but it really is about taking stock of where you are in this moment. Not your fantasies, not your past glories, but right now, here. What is happening in your life? And how can you begin to use your thinking to inspire you? What motivational things can you think about? How can you begin to picture yourself as amazing? How can you begin to embrace who you are right now, the progress that you've made, the strengths that you have, the things that you do really well, the things that excite you and energize you, the things that you're passionate about in this moment right now? How can you bring more of that into your life? When we tune into things that energize us, we have more energy, obviously. We feel motivated, we feel inspired, and we're able to work with more rigor and more commitment towards our goals. But if we don't have that, we're always going to feel like we're swimming upstream, right? So that's number one in terms of your thinking. Do an inventory of the things that you think about and then decide, what do I want to start thinking about? And before I move on, I also just want to say, thinking is a tool that we have as human beings. So in as much as it serves us and it helps us to get things done, it's also something that we need to learn to step back and observe our thinking without getting overly attached or caught up in our thinking. As I said in another video that I made, is that you're the presence, you're the awareness that you're thinking. So it really is about you taking a step back, as I just said, and looking at your thinking and saying, so that's what I'm thinking about. Oh, okay. And why am I overly attached to this particular thing that I'm thinking about? Okay. So it's almost like coaching yourself, right? You look at yourself, look at your thinking, and you ask questions about your thinking. So if you're feeling triggered, for instance, in a situation, instead of saying, I hate that person for triggering me, you can take a step back and say, why am I triggered by this person? What is it within me that is shifting as a result of being in the presence of this person? And in that way, we're able to get depth in our thinking, and we're able to own it and break free from thinking that is repetitive and cyclical, because we're then able to decide, okay, this isn't working. I choose to see things differently. I choose to take on a different framework. All right. So that's your thinking. Number two is your programming. So your programming, your upbringing gets in the way of you accepting that you're great. What kind of a home did you grow up in? Who were your primary caregivers? Your mom, your dad, uncle, auntie, whoever. Those people greatly, greatly influenced your life and how you see yourself, especially if you've never stopped to question how you see yourself. So if you grew up in a home, for instance, where people were always saying, don't do that, stop that, you're useless, man, you'll never be anything. Who do you think you are saying things like that? How dare you try to do that? How dare you think that someone in this family can do things like that? And then on and on and on and on it goes up until you move out of the house, right? So even though you've physically moved out, that thinking, that way of being, the programming and the beliefs that you got from that time, they stay with you. So even when you're in a boardroom at work or you're running your own business, those voices, that programming, those beliefs, they sit in your mind. So if those things don't serve you, it's time for you to choose differently. It's time for you to make a conscious decision and say, even though I grew up in a home where I was told I'm useless, I'm hopeless, I'll never amount to anything in my life, I choose to do things differently. And I almost hit my microphone like I did earlier. So you can see now I'm being careful. So let me point here. I choose to see myself differently, regardless of what anyone told me when I was growing up. And that's a lot of hard work. It takes courage. It takes the dark night of the soul. You facing your shadow, your pain, and all the things that you never had the voice or the power to face as a child. But now as a grown adult, you get to choose and to decide what it is that you want to believe about yourself. So that's number two, your programming and your beliefs. Number 3 is your environment. Yes, the things around you, the people around you, the books, the programs you watch, the places you go to. All of these things greatly influence how you perceive your greatness. So what kinds of books are you reading, if you read at all? What kind of videos are you watching, if you watch videos at all? Are they videos, is it content that grows you, that nourishes you, that motivates you? Or are you just watching cats dance all day on TikTok, and you're watching, what's that other thing that people like watching? Babies. Are you just watching cute little babies on what's this other channel? Oh, you can see now my age. Instagram. I almost forgot. Are you on Instagram watching endless videos of cute babies and cute cats? My daughter's 10 and she showed me this channel where people squeeze their pimples, and apparently these videos are popular. Like they get like 1 million, 2 million views of somebody sitting there, close-up camera, and they're just going, anyway, we all have different forms of distressing, of entertaining ourselves, right? So my point is, don't waste your days, don't waste your hours doing things to the extent that they become a part of you and you don't feed yourself content that grows you, that nourishes you. There's nothing wrong with setting aside 10 minutes of your time to go through the stupid videos, the dancing videos, the cooking videos, or whatever it is that does it for you. But have a limit to that. And a great way to assess your environment is to do a time audit. So in an average week or in an average month, let's say, how do you spend your time? And a great way to begin this exercise actually is to do an audit of your time for a 24-hour period. So what time do you wake up on average? And what do you do the moment you wake up? And really put time to it, put minutes, hours to it. So don't just say, I wake up and then I take the kids to school, or I wake up and then I go to work. A lot of things happen in between that. What time do you wake up exactly? So my day, for instance, I wake up on average 6:30 a.m. From 6:30 till 6:35, I stretch. I lie in bed, I get out of the bed, go back in the bed. For a good 5-10 minutes, I'm stretching. And then eventually I get up, I spend 2 minutes looking outside, looking at the sky, figuring out the weather, saying gratitude for the day, that I'm in another day, the sun has risen, I'm alive, etc. So that's another 5 minutes. And then I go brush my teeth, go to the bathroom, I get changed, and I go for a walk. So to brush my teeth and all of those things, it takes on average 5 minutes again. I go for a walk, on average 30 minutes, come back, take a shower, 10 minutes. Then I go on social media, another 10-15 minutes. And then I take another walk to my office and my day begins. And then there's another section of the day. So can you see how much activity happens between the time I wake up and the time I start my work? So when you do that, you'll be able to see what exactly it is that you spend your time on. And when you look at the things that are time wasters, or the things where you're not spending your time optimally, you're not being productive with your time, what are those things exactly, and what can you switch them out with? So very, very important step in terms of you taking ownership and being accountable to yourself for your time. Because what you do with your time will show you what your environment is like, right? When you spend time with friends, for instance, how long do you spend with friends? Where do you go? What are the things that you talk about with these people that you're in your environment? And how do they make you feel? I'm sure you've all heard the expression that we are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with, right? So if you're looking at your family and your friends and you spend a lot of time with them, and in the same breath you say, oh, my family is so toxic, my friends are so toxic, they're so jealous of me, blah, 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 blah. Guess what? It's time for you to decide, how do I want to show up in these relationships? Do I want to minimize my time? Because it's probably a good idea if the relationships are not serving you. You may want to limit the amount of time that you spend and to set boundaries for yourself and to be intentional about building a tribe of people around you that will support you, that will encourage you, that will bring out the best in you, right? When it comes to environment, I also want to encourage you to survey your home, the rooms, your bedroom, sitting room, study, whatever. How is it set up? How can you move things around? How can you bring things into the space so that there's more flow, there's more openness, so that aesthetically they look better and you feel better by being in that environment? How often do you take a walk out to nature? I always talk about nature, by the way, because it's so healing, it's so therapeutic, and there's so many research studies that have been done to show that nature has a very profound, powerful, positive effect on the body. So when was the last time you took a walk in nature? So all of these things, they really greatly contribute to you looking at yourself as great, or thinking to yourself that, you know what, I'm not that special. There's nothing great about me. I'm just an average person. There's nothing of value within me. Now, I'm not saying that you must start blowing your horn and declaring you're the world's greatest and the world's best, etc., etc. But I'm talking about having a fundamental appreciation for yourself. I'm talking about loving yourself just as you are. Because by virtue of you being a human being, you are worthy. Granted, you've probably made some bad decisions. You've taken the wrong path according to how you see things. You've let yourself down. You've failed in different things. But guess what? That does not mean that you're unworthy. All of us make mistakes. Every single human being on this planet has done something that they've regretted. But the most important thing is how you choose to move forward beyond that. Because beating yourself up, regretting it, living in shame and guilt and anger and rage towards yourself or rage towards others, that's not going to create the energy that you need to experience fulfillment, happiness, and contentment in life. Remember, in closing, at the end of the day, remember, you are great. Full stop.